It's Friday the 9th of September, about 10 a.m. West Coast time here. My name's Juan Brown. You're watching the Blanco Lirio channel, and I've got some important update information on Hurricane Irma, lots of data and numbers and things to watch for as the world's largest, most powerful hurricane that we've ever recorded on planet Earth heads for southern Florida. I just got back from Dallas Airport yesterday and met many FEMA folks that are demobilizing after Hurricane Harvey in Houston and are getting ready to turn around, change their laundry out and head out to Florida for Hurricane Irma. Right now, as of Friday morning, Hurricane Irma is a Category 4 hurricane, sustained winds of 150 miles an hour, and moving towards Florida at a rate of just 14 miles per hour. They're expecting it to hit southern Florida Sunday morning in the Keys about 1 a.m., giving folks plenty of time to get out of town. Remember, hurricanes are broken down into 5 categories, Category 5 being the strongest. Anything that exceeds sustained winds above 157 miles an hour. Irma topped out over 180 mile an hour sustained winds, the most powerful yet recorded on Earth. Category 4 hurricanes are sustained winds between 130 to 156 miles an hour. When the hurricane hits Florida, they're only expecting about 8 to 12 inches of rain, so it's not the total rainfall in this situation that's going to be the big problem. By far, the biggest problem is going to be the storm surge. They're expecting 3 to 10 feet of storm surge. Now, if you know anything about Florida, there's 3 things. It's hot, it's flat, and it's crowded. That 10-foot storm surge is going to be a huge problem for Florida. By the time Hurricane Irma hits Florida, we're not sure if it's going to be a Category 3 or 4 hurricane. Regardless, the winds are going to be in excess of 100 miles an hour. Right now, models show the hurricane heading a little bit to the west side of Florida. Earlier today and yesterday, it looked like hurricane models were going to show that hurricane hitting the Keys and then heading up towards Miami Beach. But now it looks like it's going to slide a little further to the west on its truck up north. Some things to think about in the Miami Beach area. If you're familiar with the area, Collins Avenue runs north and south, and the Miami Beach area is separated by the Intercoastal Waterway. That means there's a series of bridges running east and west that allow you to get from Miami Beach to the mainland. Those bridges are going to be shut down when the winds exceed about 39 or 40 miles an hour. You'll be stuck on Miami Beach if you're not out of there by the time those winds pick up. That same wind velocity, about 39 or 40 miles an hour, is when emergency responders are going to call it quits for 911. They're going to stop responding to 911 calls out of safety for their own crews when those winds reach about 40 miles an hour. So in other words, you're on your own. If you elect to stay in the area and not heed the evacuation warnings, you're going to be stuck there until the storm passes. Now, lots of crews are getting in place right now to handle the storm damage after the storm, and you're going to see a record-breaking recovery after this storm. They're already falling into place now. A couple other considerations in the highly populated Miami Beach area: high-rises and construction. The place, of course, has just boomed in population in recent years. High-rises have been constructed under more recent codes since Hurricanes Andrew, and as such, the high-rises today are able to withstand hurricane-force winds, and the windows in those high-rises are designed up to 170 miles an hour. However, if one of those windows is broken or not closed correctly, you're going to create such a vacuum in those buildings that it's going to be a very unsafe situation to be in. Another interesting thing about life on Miami Beach right now is, with all the development going on, is there's dozens of cranes, construction cranes, still left on the Miami Beach area. They're not taking them down. They do not have time to take them down. These cranes have counterweights on them up to 30,000 pounds. The cranes themselves are designed to handle up to 140 mile an hour winds. What they do to enable that to happen is they're going to allow the cranes to wind vane or spin into the wind. So it'll be like a giant wind vane on top of a barn as the top of that crane swings into the wind. But if one of those cranes should fail and perforate one of those high-rise buildings and bust those windows out, you're going to have a lot of damage and a lot of dangerous situations. So folks are bugging out in an orderly fashion. Traffic is very heavy and somewhat backed up, but they're able to get down the road about 20 miles an hour or more. And red tape has been cut to allow extra fuel to be trucked into the Florida area to get folks the fuel they need to get out of there. Also, tankers, ship tankers full of fuel, over 13 million gallons of fuel have been able to get into port and get unloaded and get distributed to the gas stations so folks can get the gas they need to get out of town. The entire state of Florida is about 150 miles wide. Hurricane Irma right now at 150 mile-an-hour sustained winds is about, the whole storm is about 350 miles wide. A lot of the models are showing it either heading to the west or up the middle of the state of Florida. The hurricane force winds, the center part of that storm, represents a diameter of about 70 miles wide. The tropical force winds represents a diameter of about 190 miles wide. That's going to have a huge impact across the entire state of Florida. Back at Congress, Congress has allocated a $16 billion hurricane relief package for both Hurricanes Harvey and Irma for FEMA to spend. Now let's talk about some of the flood protection infrastructure that's going to be impacted by Hurricane Irma. Lake Okeechobee, if I'm saying that correctly, the big freshwater lake in the middle of Florida. It's the second largest freshwater lake in the United States. It supplies the majority of fresh water for the entire state of Florida. Lake Okeechobee is protected by the Hoover Dike system, about 147 miles of dike to keep that water in that lake. Traditionally, the natural flow of things in Florida there is for Lake Okeechobee, located in the center part of the state, to naturally overflow into the Everglades when the water gets high. Now, with all the growth and population out there, the Hoover Dike system prevents Lake Okeechobee from naturally overflowing into the Everglades. This 147-mile-long dike system is about 30 feet tall and is a part of our aging infrastructure in America. Again, it was primarily built to its present state in the 1960s. In the last several years, millions of dollars have been spent on the Hoover Dike system, improving it, including cut-off walls and improving concrete structures and gates and that sort of thing. Improvements continue to go on today with the Hoover Dike system. One of the big concerns with this type of a dike system is piping. When the water level rises in Lake Okeechobee, the water tends to put pressure on the dike and start seeping into the dike and then poke out the other side. If that water starts seeping out enough, it'll start taking out material with it, and in the worst case scenario, it could collapse a section of dike. They're not anticipating any dike failures with this hurricane. They are anticipating, however, with this storm surge and with the winds, the straight line winds, they are anticipating water to overlap perhaps parts of the top of the dike. The Hoover Dike system is not located in a populated area, as was the case in Houston, so major flooding or minor flooding out of this dike system does not represent a major problem to population. The important thing to know about Lake Okeechobee is managers are draining that lake as quick as they can right now ahead of this storm, in anticipation of this storm. Normal high water levels for Lake Okeechobee, again, this is flat terrain, this is nothing we're used to out west. High lake water levels in Lake Okeechobee are on the order of about 17 feet. Right now they've got that lake lowered to about 13 feet. Historically low levels for the lake are about 12 feet. The height of the levee is at 30 feet elevation, so there's a lot of room for water in the Lake Okeechobee area. If the lake gets 12 inches of rain, they anticipate a rise in the lake level of 3 feet, 13, 14, up to 16 feet. Still plenty of room for the levees. So about 3 to 1. As you can tell, it's a very flat sort of floodplain system. So Google Maps has been turned on to show the real-time traffic flow. Tolls have been turned off. Get your gas in an orderly fashion and get out of town. If you've ever wondered what it's like to drive in a hurricane, here's a little clip from Top Gear, what it's like to run a Citroen 2CV behind a 747 running at full power, producing winds of over 180 miles an hour.
A Citroen 2CV.
Big engine, lightweight hippie car. This should be fun. Okay, here we go again. The engines are up to 58,000 pounds of thrust. The car is released. And 3, 2, whoa, crisis! Yes, Yes, the 2CV really doesn't like crosswinds.
From the back deck of the Blanco Lirio headquarters here in Northern California, my name's Juan Brown, and thanks for your continued support and subscription to this station. See you here.